Hello, and welcome to Data Matters Podcast, brought to you by Matatika, the simpler, smarter data platform that doesn't lock you in. In this podcast, we get into the bits and bytes of modern data, uncovering the stories from you, today's data leaders. Hosted by me, Aaron Fethian. So without further ado, let's dive in. Welcome to today's show. We are joined by Sami Rahman, an expert in his field and with a really unique perspective coming from a psychology background on what it takes to adopt AI in an organization, as well as the technology and the data-led approach. I think there's some fascinating takeaways from this episode. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Sami, and welcome to the show. I am really looking forward to recording today's episode. There's a ton of crazy stats on AI out there. Just to shout out a couple, 83% of companies prioritizing AI, 30% of the workforce being eliminated through AI, and half of companies already investing in AI and data. And you've got real first-hand experience with it. So please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your role at Hypebeast, and let's get us started.
Sure. So I'm Sami Rahman. I'm in charge of data and AI at Hypebeast. My role is to look at multiple facets of how we use data and AI in the organization. What should the strategy be? How do we future-proof? How do we look at the operating model of data and AI? What technological advancements and people and culture projects we should do, but also looking at what kind of experimentation and innovation we should do for the company as well.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's quite a demanding role. When I was thinking about and we were discussing the episode, there are quite a few different things that I thought, that's just going to be so great to talk about. One in particular, if we think about what we should discuss and what you bring to is it your background is actually in psychology, so actually talking about that kind of human side of AI. I think digging into that first is going to be pretty awesome. A bit later into that, how you actually gained adoption at Hypebeast, sort of was the thing we discussed, and then obviously we're a tech podcast, and for everyone listening, hopefully we get to the technology and what's behind that. So maybe starting with the first one then, how does psychology and AI and that kind of smashing together of two ways of looking at intelligence actually work in your mind?
So it's really funny. So, for example, one of the godfathers of AI, with the four godfathers of AI, right? One of them, Geoffrey Hinton, is a psychologist. And a lot of AI and machine learning and analytics relies on statistics. But the two founders of statistics, one was a psychologist and one was a biologist, Pearson and Spearman. That's where Pearson and Spearman's correlation comes from. Yeah. So I won't say it was a natural transition, because in the UK, psychology has become less and less focused on statistics and maths, whereas in China and America they haven't. So obviously, naturally, what psychologists do, we look at large populations. How can we measure their behavior? Can we predict what they do? Can we make inferences from it? But obviously, the interaction or understanding most people have with psychologists is usually therapists and psychiatrists, when actually psychology is a massive wide field of different types of personas and characters. But it's a funny story though, because when I was in university, I was one of the few brown guys on the course with glasses, and everyone used to come up to me on our stats lessons going, "Oh, Sami, how do I do this?" I was like, I don't know. And then it just got to a point where I started picking it up and just realized, all right, that's what regression does, that's what ANOVA does, that's what this does.
So you became the stats guy because everyone was just asking you anyway.
Because they stereotyped me as the stats guy, and then I became the stereotype. And then actually in psychology, that's called a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I became the self-fulfilling prophecy. But when I worked in psychology, and I had a little short stint in counterterrorism as well, I was looking at the mathematical basis and statistical basis of behavior in people and terrorists, and how could we know what they're doing, classify it, group it. And I did a master's in counterterrorism. My dissertation and everything was focused on psychology. It was to do with I worked with all 9 police services of Australia, looking at the internet child exploitation officers and how do we make them operate a lot better in the very
Yeah, yeah.
serious and devious environment they work in. Um, and yeah, when I finished, I just learned Python and went into data. But it was a
Yeah.
natural transition for me. But what I noticed as I went into data, um, so a lot of people have a very similar background in maths, physics,
Yeah,
computer
yeah.
science, and that makes them super excellent at the structures of data, software engineering,
Mm-hmm.
where I came really strong. And I think that's what helped accelerate my career as well. And I will be honest, it took a lot of trying to get into this career. I understood actually what is the application of data, what are all the confounding variables that we're missing, what
Yeah.
are the underlying mechanisms and nuance to why we're seeing that data, and actually interrogating it a bit further. But don't get me wrong, I did pick up a lot of the software
Yeah,
engineering
exactly. I mean,
stuff as well.
those concepts are so big, though. Like, actually, fully understanding and appreciating why the question has been asked. And actually, even now, like thinking about that link between psychology and it being more of a kind of statistical observation of human behavior. That I'm hearing that for the second time. When we discussed it the first time, it still didn't quite sink in that that's really what it is, and it's sort of obvious when you've explained it like that. And if we sort of leap to that self-fulfilling prophecy, it also occurred to me that there's a lot of you know perhaps fear about AI becoming uh, running everything or taking over everything. Well, perhaps if we're thinking like that, it will. I mean, that also seems like a kind of shocking outcome of those observations. Where, where do you where do you see it sort of going next? Like, we're currently, the next part, thinking about, AI adoption, but where do you think the kind of future that the prophecy is headed?
From a societal point of view.
Yeah.
So I think actually one question, and this is going slightly political, I think one question people don't tend to ask is why is there that fear?
Hmm.
And I think the reason a lot of people are fearful around AI and losing their jobs and um, maybe losing some meaning they have in life for skills that they built over years and decades is there's probably not much trust in our institutions and governments that in a hypothetical world where all the jobs are done by robots and AI, that people will be looked after. And I think that's where the fear comes from.
Interesting.
If people felt like there would be a safety net, that there would be um, something for them not to, potentially be homeless, potentially
Mm-hmm.
um, leave
Because
a
they
place
lose their
of
value, they
poverty.
lose their contribution to society. So the obvious conclusion is that they lose their way of an income. Actually, I
It's,
don't
it's,
really
it's
see
like
that.
me and you. If, truthfully speaking, let's say in the next 3 years, AI became a lot more amazing than the hype of it, and robots became highly accessible and cheap and easy to maintain, and I had no purpose to exist in the type of role I do, and your
Hmm.
company had no purpose to exist, but we had no mechanism to make money. As I'm talking through it, I am getting scared of that
Yeah.
idea. But if I knew, oh, actually, if that did happen, we're all going to get universal basic income and assurances that we're not going to uh, starve to death.
Yeah.
And I
Exactly.
actually wouldn't be scared of that reality. But I have that fear at the societal level, but maybe not at the more granular level within an organization that a lot of people have.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. So that I think kicks us off really, really nicely. So let's assume that we can just park that fear for a second, and we now want to talk about how do we adopt AI in organizations, and effectively we're talking about how to make some of those a much more of reality. Set the scene for us at Hypebeast. What are you trying to do with AI agents? Like what's the sort of overall goal, and where are you up to on that?
So for us, we did downsize, and so that did mean quite a few people had a lot more work to do and a lot higher pressure. One thing we recognized really early on was let's set the foundations correctly for data infrastructure and tech as best as we can, especially considering that the market is not so good for like a retail organization like ours. But what are other people doing and how are they adopting it? And we could see a lot of hype, a lot of claims of AI completely I don't want to name any companies, but replacing all their staff with AI. And then actually we saw,
Yeah.
let's see what happens in 6 months. And what do? They rehired them at higher salaries than they made them
Wow.
redundant.
Great move.
We were like, all right, it's probably not right now depth and critical at actually replacing entire people. And do we want to do that anyway? Because we're quite a creative company. We need that human touch and human understanding
Yeah.
of why certain things are popular, why certain things are enjoyed by people. But can we use AI as a force multiplier to that person to speed up, doing pitches, finding information, looking at how they can consolidate information really quickly to make a decision? And you're actually seeing this in, like, that was our hypothesis anyway. Actually, we should use it as a force multiplier. We're not going to try to replace jobs. We might automate manual tasks, but you could do that pre-AI anyway with DBT and RPA. Not that anyone says those phrases anymore.
They seem like, yeah, they're quite already legacy terms, but they're getting taken over. But
Even though
okay,
it's
I get the
AI
sense that-
now, under the hood, it's the same RPA type technology. A lot of people were looking at replacing roles, but we were like, okay, can we automate some of the manual cleansing tasks or system updating tasks easily enough done? And you can use AI agents to do that. But what we looked at is actually we don't have an enterprise AI strategy. We do build machine learning, deep learning, and AI tools. But how are people using it today? And what we saw is they weren't using it as a content creation engine to like write their emails for them. They weren't using it to like generate loads of things. They were using it as almost like a search engine with personality.
Yeah.
And finding information really quickly and making sense of it. And actually, a lot of our agents focus on that. But that's how we got that adoption up as well. Actually, speeding up the collection and creation of information. And what I find really beautiful is OpenAI literally validated me today. They literally released how people were using OpenAI, and it literally dropped over the past 2 years of people using it for work purposes, like writing emails, building documents, generating code, even to actually people using it as a knowledge system and how they can find things really quickly.
Yeah. And is that a case of the late majority starting to adopt it, but having not really perceived it's different, it's an operation? Like, so is there a bulk of people turning up that just are using it like a search engine? Do you think it's that, or do you think it's actually what it's better at?
I think so. I think it's because a lot of people saw it in the beginning as, oh, I can draft this document really quickly, I can draft this email really quickly. But then we all drown in a world of similarity. Everyone's suddenly using M dashes and Oxford commas. And what really annoys me is I've always used Oxford commas, but
Yeah, but now you can't because you get accused of being AI.
then the issue is, after I learned what an M dash was, I was like, oh, this is a great piece of punctuation. It actually makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I think everyone started becoming homogenous in when they were creating content and using it to speed up work content like documents that actually it went the other way, where actually now people want to see more individualistic, but they want to get that information, wherever that information is, really quickly and make sense of it really quickly. And
Yeah.
you're seeing that a lot in publishers, especially in the news world. They're losing a lot of revenue because people aren't actually clicking on their websites anymore.
That was the news today, right? Like that was a sort of big announcement that I think it was Substack was up 48% usage, which puts them like almost on par with some of the big news companies that we recognise, and they tend to be sort of down 25% in visitors.
Yeah, it was something like only 3 websites in the world increased their traffic, and Substack was one of them. I don't know what the other two are because the articles I read never mentioned it.
Yeah.
So I imagine that they're adult websites, but hey ho.
Yeah.
But I guess what they meant was information websites where people read and consume content. Only 3 in the world went up significantly, and the rest
Yeah.
decreased.
And then, so internally, when you were looking at your use cases, did you lean in towards more how people were intending to use it, or how you thought they should use it? Like, what did you look out for when you thought, okay, we're going to build an agent for whoever it was?
So we really lent into use cases that aren't super sexy, but would actually free up time. So we looked at actually how can we research what articles we should talk about really quickly. So, scanning different social media sites and actually news sites to figure out what is trending right now and what is the core content of it in a thematic point of view. So if there was a military incursion that happened somewhere in the world, that is really not our vibe, not what we talk about, so we can ignore that. Oh, but actually this celebrity is now starting this trend and movement of this type of shoe. That is relevant to us. How do we want to talk about it? What are the different psychological groups, so psychographic groups that exist within our organization, from the things they read, the type of content they engage with, and the type of things they buy, and how do we tailor it to them as well? So how do we personalize it? And
to just for everyone listening, I would clarify my understanding. This is because of the type of business that you're in. Like, this is the kind of information that your company needs to do their job, right?
yeah, and it actually became like an intelligence system. So rather than a journalist or retailer thinking, I know this is sexy and I must talk about it. I know this is going to be hot. I must sell it on our website. We start getting intelligence packs saying, this is what's going to grow. These are the themes. But still, you write the article like a human, or you decide whether we buy it or not. Because we decided not to have. We do have fully autonomous systems, AI agents in like our logistics chain, in our shipping, packaging, some of our finance things.
Yeah.
Those things didn't need a human touch. Like, we don't need to have an artistic differential on every time we package a box. That just needs to be somewhat similar every time. We don't need the accounting of the P&L to be different every time. It needs to be the same every time. But where we have our more human-led parts, where it's sales, where it's journalism, where it's retail, design, production, we don't fully make that chain completely automated. And we are seeing that in my industry, where journalists have been completely replaced, designers, artists have been completely replaced. But the engagement from what AI is creating, like your mid journeys or Soras or Nano Banana is the new one, it's very hollow and the same, and it isn't actually resonating with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because I think they've become habituated to the content. It's like when, if you remember a couple of months ago, everyone was publishing pictures of themselves in the style of Spirited Away, the studio that makes Spirited Away.
I don't remember that one, but I do remember the action figure dolls.
Yes,
like that was just like everywhere as a thing all of a sudden.
And it's funny for maybe half a week, but then everyone else is doing it, so you don't connect with it so much.
Yeah.
But the same thing is happening in businesses, aside from us, where we'll use it to enhance and make ideas and maybe create assets, but we will never have a situation where AI is completely in control.
I get it. And did you have any resistance from your users? Like, I think one of the things I recall us talking about is that you actually tried to build up a little bit of desire, that you didn't give them everything. You gave them something like, a little bit of a taste almost of what it could be, and you built that kind of internal desire for quite a while before you started delivering actual agents. So I wonder if you could revisit that.
Yeah, it was 3 months before we gave anyone access, and that was completely no, not 3 months. It was 10 weeks, so nearly 3 months. That was deeply on purpose. It was deeply on purpose because I thought, okay, we could deliver a whole culture and change strategy. We could say all the benefits. We could just drown them in information and give people the ability to access it and just go for it. Now, let me take a different tact, because I do engage with a lot of other data leaders and go to these talks and listen to them, and they all try the same thing and it fails. I've been a highly contrarian person, so if I go to a data leaders conference or a roundtable and they're all talking about a particular method they're doing, I will silently in my head say I'm going to do the opposite to what they're doing, just to see what happens. If I fail, no one will hear about it. If I succeed, everyone will hear about it. But what I did is, instead of giving them all access and showing them the benefit, I was like, why should I drown people in information? It's like same way if my company got a new expense management system, I don't want to read reams and reams of documents and hear from someone in HR who has a clearly fake smile about why it's great. But what I did over 10 weeks, on a Tuesday at 9, they got a little snippet of what it could do. Oh, hey, you can extract all the information you need out of a PDF, and here's a little video of them doing it with a really cool graphic that someone in the design team either helped me with or we just took from Google's website.
Yeah.
Oh, here's what you could do. So I'll just get pings going, when can we have it? I was like, I'll think about it. So I just gave them a very vague answer. I was like, yeah, I do want to give it to people. I don't know when though. I'll let you know. So I wasn't even giving them a clear answer of when they would get it. And I knew in my head, and the comms team knew, and the design team knew it would be in 10 weeks. But
Yeah.
it's really driving that FOMO and really driving that frustration of,
That's
oh, you
fascinating.
just mentioned a problem I have and I want it. Oh, this is how you can use it to summarize all your meeting notes with clients and build key actions. And so all this says, oh, we do that manually. Can we have it? I was like, yeah, I'll think about it. I haven't decided if it's right for the company or not. I might change my mind.
Yeah, I did. I remember. I recall this whole conversation. We were discussing this episode, and like that whole idea. Like I do also talk to a lot of people who are like, "Oh, how do we get adoption? How do we get like certain people using it?" And actually, like the whole idea of, "Well, don't give it to them," that will, but promise like what it could do. That is just like such a cool way of getting the desire in place, and then when you do deliver the solution, they want to use it. They want to look at it. Yeah.
There is a name for it in behavioral science and psychology. It's called curiosity gap theory. It's just like teasing a bit and people want to find out more. It's like when you see a do not enter sign and it just begs the question like what's behind that door? So it's like just using that mechanism.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? And so when people were asking, oh, what else can it do? Can it do X, Y, and Z? I knew the answer was either yes or no. But I would say, I don't know. And they're like, oh, I found this article that says you can do it. I was like, maybe, bro. Maybe, maybe not. So I was being super vague on purpose. And like, oh, can I try it to see if it can do this thing? If I can create a graphic out of a graphic video out of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And I knew Sora on ChatGPT Enterprise, which we have. And I knew Google VO 3, which again, we have like multiple enterprise AI. I knew it could do it.
Hmm.
I was just being very vague because it forced them to go out and look for things. It
And
forced
have a
them
bit of explore.
and as I was
So
saying,
I love it as an idea, and I wonder for anyone listening, do you, in hindsight, see any risks with the approach? Like, would you do it
yeah,
again?
I got loads of complaints. I got loads of complaints. I got aggression, but there was sign off on this approach, and I did have a reason for this approach because we
Yeah,
did. A lot of other teams tried the other approach, which is the change management approach,
just in
inform
yeah.
everyone, handhold them, hypercare, all of that stuff. And I've just hated that approach in every company I've worked for. Obviously, I wasn't leaderish enough to decide not to do that. Um, Completely makes sense in a risk-adverse environment that is regulated, like banking, pharma, health. But I'm not in that industry, and actually, most of us that follow those procedures aren't.
Yeah.
Um, but my favorite thing was around week 8 to 9. I was giving it to a few people that were the lowest performers in all the teams. Basically, like the village idiot of every team. I hope no
Okay.
one listens to this because some of them might realize that I got it before everyone.
Maybe Ben watch this part and be careful.
So obviously, and there was a good reason for it, which was actually these people were seen as low performers. But could I see a demonstrable effect of them becoming medium to higher performers?
Mm.
And that drove like the last 2 weeks. That's when I was getting banging on my door, going, so and so person did X many projects, and they're so much quicker. I'm better than them.
Interesting.
Why can't I have it? And then yeah, there was a launch, and literally within 1 week, it went from 3% to 40% of people taking it. Within the second week, it went to something in the 70s, and by the third week, it went all the way to 95. And we're teetering still. The max we got to was 97. Now we're teetering on 94 to 96.
Yeah,
And
that level of adoption of even a single agent is amazing. And I think you were saying this sort of has become your benchmark for each of the agents that you release. That you're really looking for really high adoption.
yeah, around the 80. Where it's not a fully autonomous system, where a human doesn't need to interact with, in interactable AI, once it's gone through its iterations and the department, whatever department we're working with is happy with, we
Hmm.
try to get above 80. If it's
Yeah.
a daily or weekly used application, then it has to be 80. If it's a yearly or infrequently thing, such as with audits or uh, housekeeping, spring cleaning, then we don't really worry about the usage of that because we know they're going to use it once a year.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
and we haven't had the case of anyone missing a year yet because this is still newish technology. It's
Yeah.
about 8 years, 2 years old for us.
I think the other part of it that I wanted to touch on is how you're quite comfortable getting rid of agents that just have no purpose anymore or don't serve anyone. I think this is one of the aspects of it is like this kind of level of measurement. I think means that you can do that, but also just like these agents come and go pretty quickly because they might not be needed anymore.
Yes, and it's a completely different mindset to when a lot of data people were doing dashboards
Mm.
or were doing pipelines almost because you would see, okay, the adoption has dropped. Why is that? Maybe people left or this isn't being used anymore. Let's reconfigure it to be useful to the company.
Yeah.
But there's been many times where actually we built agents in the big, like the two projects we started off with, we were so like proud of them. One was I think we took something like Mistral or Llama and used Agno and configured our own custom uh, AI that can analyze data for people.
Mm.
The second thing we built was basically you upload documents, or we trained the raw document um, of the HR policies of every country that we operate in into an AI, and it could answer any question.
Mm.
But very quickly, the technology changed, and actually, nearly every whatever AI you choose to use has an inbuilt data analysis tool, regardless. So
Yeah.
it just made that defunct really quickly. And then a lot of them now have whatever you would like to call it, RAG, document storage, just natively built in. So like Gemini can connect to Drive, ChatGPT can connect to Outlook
Yeah.
and
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
Drive as well. So then there became a purpose. Do we need to have some of these like RAG engines to build on Vertex? Do we need it, or can we just have those PDFs of the HR policies in a Drive file, and a agent can just
Mm.
go read that using an MCP layer and give the answer back? So, and that was interesting because you know that old mindset of dashboards and pipelines, you would essentially try to refactor those agents and try to modernize them. But here we're like, actually, they're not needed, delete,
Yeah.
throw away. And sometimes some of them merge, some of them split. It's a lot more transient than the dashboard era and the pipeline era. Even though those things still exist,
Yeah.
it's a completely different approach, a much more, I'd say, ephemeral approach than before. It's
Yeah, yeah,
you
exactly.
have that
It does
product.
feel that way. I think the technology moving at the rate it is, clearly things are going to be legacy pretty quickly or
Yeah.
just not required. I suppose then, maybe then entering the final part of the episode and looking at the data and the technology, I think like even before this stage, you had actually prepared like the groundwork and a lot of the technology and infrastructure was already part of what you'd built. Um, what advice would you give someone starting out or assessing where they're at on that kind of technology readiness before they get to the agent adoption?
So a lot of people say data governance is really important,
Hmm.
and we did do that. We did try to catalog everything and stuff like that, but that did not lead to anything because a lot of people, and I think you see this messaging a lot, and I don't think people understand the mechanism of it. But a lot of people will say you need to have catalogs and governed data and highly structured data to make AI work properly, and that is not necessarily true. You need well connected data, and that's where like methodology is more like
Yeah.
how does your transformation layer look, how does your extraction layer look, and do you have anything like a graph database where it's a bit more interconnected, where your data is connected together.
Hmm.
The cataloging process, we found you can make that a lot quicker, so you still need a catalog. I would recommend you have them. But where a lot of people are going wrong is they're having them and not actually connecting them at all.
Yeah.
But this is probably one of my more favorite use cases. But we have an agent to see if people are asking questions and it's pinging data that doesn't have a definition or doesn't have any connectivity to it.
So you're actually measuring the ontology, the what they're looking at as a topic, and whether they're actually
The
exploring
opposite
other
way
areas.
around. So we're going top down instead of we did go bottom up, but that kind of and I think the bottom up approach will work in a regulated industry because you have to do that. Your regulators
Mm.
make you do that. I think for everyone else, you can go top down, which is actually start using it and allow the AI to inform you what it's pinging at and looking at, and you can actually build agents to start filling in like the metadata profile layer of
Yeah.
DBT, fill in the table descriptions in BigQuery or whatever database you use. You can get them to fill that in. So if a person's having a conversation, it will literally say, "Oh, what does this mean?" And it will literally do a pull request to GitHub to say, "Hey, can I put this into the DBT layer and update the data?"
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You're having a
You know
much more
that is just so cool. I know my mind's going go racing just thinking about it. Like often, what's really frustrating is when the data warehouse that's been caringly built doesn't match the organization anymore.
yeah.
But you know, when you what you're talking about, like what are people talking about? What are people calling things? What are we actually working on? And then, well, that's our data model. That's the that's what we're
Yeah, it's
surfacing.
more of a proactive semantic layer.
Mm,
It's
mm.
much more proactive, and I think I've hurt a lot of data governance people's feelings about this because it because data governance ultimately kind of came from the finance industry and how they did it in banking, which is really risk adverse, really bottom up. I just don't
Yeah.
think it applies to everyone else. So, and actually, a lot of people try to replicate that in every industry.
Mm.
But I get it because you don't have to be a highly technical person or highly technical team to do the bottom up approach. You just have to be very organized. What I've described, you need a technical team to do it, and you need a
Yeah.
technical team to implement it and keep it running. Um, but then again, data is a technical field, so
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
apologize for it. But yeah, it puts governance into a much more smoother process, a lot less obtrusive, a lot less conversations, and it's actually just as the people in my company are working and asking questions,
Mm.
it's capturing whether there's anything missed. There's still a human checking. Does the
Yeah.
and that human is in my team. Does this update definition make sense? Has it tagged the right thing or captured the right thing? But one
Yeah.
mistake my team kept making, and this wasn't from me specifying I should do it, but when they were building this is so funny. But yeah, we also had to do a crash course for the team of actually you need to think about AI a bit, or LLM type AI, transformer type AI, a bit
Mm-hmm.
different to how you're doing machine learning or engineering. But yeah, so like some of the AIs they were making, even from three months ago, was just a bit like robotic, and it just didn't understand context really well. So I was like, oh, can I show me the prompt and the hypertuning and the temperature and just all these variables you set into the and what and apparently it's just not unique to me. Other data teams do this too, but the team would put the YAML configuration of like here's the structure of the data into the prompt itself, and it's like
Right.
that in isolation isn't a bad thing to do. Sorry, that in isolation makes no sense. You should have it in there actually. I actually think putting that in there makes it a bit better. But you need to have context of this is what this business means, this is what this unit means. You have to
Yeah.
have all that in there, unless you have that active catalog where it can read from, hey, this is what these things mean. And actually, that's
Mm.
where a lot of people go wrong when they're making agents. They keep talking about data governance, and they do it, but a lot of corporations, the reason why their AI initiatives are failing, um, aside from the fact that I think that the statistic of 80% or 90% is failing isn't real, and I can talk about why, is that they are making these governance layers, but they're not connecting their AI to them.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, maybe worth not keeping everyone in suspense and touch on that for a second. So you think that the stat around AI adoption and failure rates isn't anything like that? Is that what you're saying?
No, I think it's a media narrative,
Okay.
and I think apparently it came from an MIT study. And just what I know about scientific studies, the media always misrepresents them or misunderstands them.
Yeah. Just doesn't want
It's
to get
like
into the detail.
it's like there was a really popular one on LinkedIn about MIT found people that use ChatGPT, their brains don't activate that much, and it just I personally did not comment on it on LinkedIn or any social media, but loads of data leaders were. I was like, as someone who knows how to read EEG brain scans and what does the lighting up of a brain mean, because that's what my PhD's on.
Yeah.
Like everyone has completely misunderstood what MIT have said about ChatGPT and memory. Nonetheless, why I think that statistic is not realistic. I think if you look at it at the most highest level, it probably is calculated correctly, but it completely ignores the fact of multiple things. It ignores experimentation.
Which was designed to not go anywhere, and it's an experiment. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of the times you do experiments with all the best intentions. Like, I hope this works and we can deploy it to like a live environment with real people. And then I think all of us had such a high expectation of LLMs and transformers because we were watching the demos from large tech corporations with almost unlimited compute, unlimited data, unlimited number of engineers. All of us try to replicate what they did, and we just can't to their scale. And actually, sometimes you, like for example, on ChatGPT, when you try to use custom, when you're trying to build a custom GPT, it doesn't give you the same power and functionalities as if you use their vanilla model.
Yeah.
So I'm very dubious about that statistic because I think there's a lot of confounding variables and scenarios where actually it makes sense for AI projects to fail. As we said maybe 6 minutes ago, I get rid of agents like nothing and rebuild them. Would I call that a failure personally? I wouldn't, but there are people in my company that say, oh yeah, that failed, it didn't work, when actually it did. It just served its purpose and it served it.
It's no longer required. Yeah.
So that's why I'm really dubious. And secondly, a lot of the companies that are trying them out, they are massive corporations. And sometimes I wonder, did the media, maybe MIT did it, I've never read the study, but was that factored in, the size of the company, the scale of what they were trying to do? Did they have the right data and found infrastructure to do it? And I think there's just so many variables around it that it might just, that number, it might be misleading. And obviously this is my career, so maybe I'm going to defend it.
Super interesting perspective. And maybe an awesome point to kind of wrap up on. If you revisit our kind of conversation, linking the kind of human side of AI, and we talked about kind of adoption and the technology required. I wonder if there's kind of any parting thought you'd leave with someone starting out on this journey for their company, some kind of practical takeaways. Where should they begin?
I think the best place to begin, it would be the data foundation. I think it's easy to say look at use cases, but I don't think you need to do that in this instance. I don't think a lot of people start on use cases and then try to fit their tech around it. I think look at what tech do you have already and what are the capabilities of it. Because I think a lot of the times in this space, a lot of people try to discard the technology or act like it's not an important part. But what technology you have and you can get completely influences your capability to meet your use cases.
Yeah.
And actually, that's where you start really easily, because then you haven't gone and got loads of investment and bought an expensive platform, hired expensive people. Where can you start really small and unimpressive and just build up from there? Because I think everyone tries to go really impressive and organization changing in the beginning, and I don't think you need to do that. I'd say start small, see what capabilities you have, and then see what use cases you can meet with that capability. And open source is amazing in this space as well. You don't have to just go with Google or ChatGPT or Microsoft. And those are the big four.
Do you know what? Awesome advice. And I think, probably great advice for almost anything. Start small and grow it from there. But, particularly in this case where, a massive investment before doing anything is just not necessary at the current stage of our technology. Thanks, Sami. Really, really enjoyed recording and diving into the topics around AI beyond the kind of just the technology. Thanks, and I look forward to speaking again.
Thank you.
Cheers. Well, that's it for this week. Thank you so much for listening. Brought to you by Matatika the simpler, smarter data platform. Data Matters aims to share the latest technology directions and your experiences in modern data. If you've enjoyed this episode, why not hit the follow button and stay up to date with new episodes as they're released. Finally, if you feel the episode could benefit someone you know, please share it with them. And we're always on the lookout for guests with interesting experiences to share. This has been Data Matters. I've been Aaron Fethian, your host. And until next time, bye for now.